This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. All right, we are here with Neal Schaffer, social and digital marketing superstar. How are you, my friend?
Doing awesome, thank you. How are you doing?
We're doing great. The social and digital landscape is changing like what? By the hour? By the day? I mean, so this is your full-time thing is to keep up with the crazy. Tell us what's coming up. What can we expect here in the next little bit of time here? And what's exciting and what's scary?
Well, that's a lot to encompass, but
I know.
I mean, first of all, the digital trend. I know a lot of you speakers out there are already well on it. You understand the importance of a personal brand in the digital age, but it's only going to get more and more important. It becomes a very, very busy space. And I think one of the unfortunate things for a lot of businesses is that the space becomes more pay to play, right? And even for us as people, we are always at an advantage as people versus businesses. And this is why for some of you, well, should I use a business Facebook page or personal or business Instagram, personal or personal? The personal is always going to get the better weight in any algorithm. And what's really been interesting, what I've seen, everybody talks about Instagram and everything, right? But for all of us that get business from other businesses or from, business professionals, LinkedIn has really become an extremely valuable site. It's always been a valuable site, but what's really interesting is that they're really giving presence to personal posts. And if you publish content on LinkedIn, that's awesome. I know a guy, saw him yesterday, he just publishes 3 times a week on LinkedIn, okay? Now you're thinking to yourself, I can't write 3 blog posts a week, right? Even once a week is plenty. He does 3 status updates. These aren't even blog posts. And he gets business from that. And he was giving me examples of that. And, these status updates to get 10,000 views, 20,000 views, 30,000 views. And I've had the same experience. So, while everybody talks about all the sexy Instagram and Snapchat, let's not forget LinkedIn and what a lucrative place it is. And I'm doubling down for B2B and for speakers that want professional associations and other businesses to reach out to them. I'm really doubling down on LinkedIn for 2018 and really getting into the habit of not just using LinkedIn as a way to automate content promotion like you might do on a Twitter, but really try to be authentic. LinkedIn has started doing videos. That's the other trend, obviously, is we've been saying videos for like a decade now. But, when LinkedIn adds it as a feature, and when every time you go into your LinkedIn app, you see a video at the top, that's showing you something. Video really does resonate. As a speaker, you need to have video, right? And it's funny because I am the type of speaker that has never allowed my clients to record my videos, and I do not put them online. I'm a Gen Xer. I have just a different mindset of I'd rather have sort of a closed curtain and have a sort of, if you want to get access to my content, you're going to have to do a lot to be able to see that. And I do that I want to have a little bit more control because with my content and social media, it's not necessarily evergreen. There are things that change. So I don't want someone to find me talking about Google Plus for an hour and saying this guy's out of it, right? So that's one of the reasons I do that. But for the first time, 2 days ago, I literally had a 15-minute keynote from a presentation I did recently, and I decided to upload it in full to YouTube. And I had a client saying, Neal, we want to see more of your speaker videos. We have a large group of people deciding who we're going to hire. We love you, but we need other people in the organization to see you and feel you and hear you. And so as a speaker, video is like a no-brainer, right? And I think it's a natural way of content creation for us as well. So I want to urge you all to get out there in front of the camera more, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook. Instagram is getting important because everyone's using it, right? And the beautiful thing is not everybody can speak to a camera like speakers can. And that's to our advantage to really get out there and share our content on that platform as well. So double down on LinkedIn. It's always about content creation wherever you are, and video and Instagram and even Facebook. I think we're going to see a resurgence of video there. It's exciting times to be a speaker. It's exciting times to be an NSA. And I think those that get out there and really create a lot of content and share a lot of content in different ways on these social channels are going to be at an advantage going forward.
So let's go back to LinkedIn because you just blew my mind here about the 3 just LinkedIn status updates. What kind of updates? Are they controversial? Are they personal? Are they vulnerable? Like, I'm wrestling with being an alcoholic, or what causes 10,000 views on a status update?
So one of my most successful ones is very simple. You're in a business meeting, you're at a convention, and you have a casual business conversation that others will want to eavesdrop on, right? So mine was, I am launching a social selling program with Rutgers University. It's the first time executive education program has actually created a social selling program to help B2B salespeople leverage social media. So I was looking for instructors as the lead faculty, and I already had a short list of people that in the social selling space I know are at the top of the game, but I wanted to vet it out with LinkedIn. So I basically put up a status update, right? Hey, creating a social selling program with a university, and I want to know who has influenced you vis-a-vis social selling. Who do you see are the thought leaders? So obviously you get people, it's a question. Questions do well when people want to respond, but then you get into a little competition, right? I'm sure some of the people probably had their networks say, hey, please say good things about me on this chain, or, I don't know what it was, but LinkedIn is trying to become the Wall Street Journal. They're trying to become a Forbes. They need more content to become this big publishing platform, which is why, originally LinkedIn blog posts were only for influencers. Then they opened it up for everybody. But there's just still not enough content and enough good content. So they really value these authentic types of conversations, not something that's automated, not sharing of a link or just like a quote image, but authentic conversation. And those little things have done really, really well for me. Even when I get views in the hundreds, on a Facebook or on a Twitter, that's not easy to do these days, right? So, now the gentleman I met yesterday is very, very interesting. He has his own little formula. And I think we should all create a formula, because if you have a routine in place, you're going to do better with social media, right? His formula is he posts on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, because Mondays and Fridays don't do well. You should experiment yourself. And on Tuesday, he posts just general business information. He's in the world of social selling. He does speaking and training, but he'll just, from his 20 years of business experience, he'll just talk about, why does person X get promoted and person Y never gets promoted? Just something that he's inspired to talk about from his experience, maybe a conversation with a customer. He'll just say, hey, these are my views. What do you think? On Wednesday, he says he does an infographic. And I'm like, whoa, are you creating an infographic? He goes, no, it's a single stat. He creates one image. It'll just say like 54%, right? And it sort of draws your eyes. Like, well, what about 54%? 54% are doing whatever. And as a speaker, I use stats a lot. I'm sure a lot of speakers have a few stats they throw into a lot of speeches. It's basically splicing and dicing and just taking one, because people don't have time to look through the whole infographic, and just talking about one. And then on his Thursday one, he does a more long form. I'm like, are you actually blogging? He goes, no, it's in a status update, but this is more related directly around my products and services and how it relates to people around the world. So number one, his content is it's not centric to him. It's based on the audience, which, we always, as speakers, we know that, but sometimes when we create content, it's very self-promotional. We need to always remember our audience and have it useful to them. But it's this interesting mix of text, of photo. He's not dropping links at all. And he says when he drops a link, I thought this was really interesting, he'll put it in a comment. Because immediately if LinkedIn sees it's a link, the weight in the algorithm goes down, but you're free to say, hey, check the comment for the link to the post, right? So that was really brilliant advice, I thought. And I just happened to have this over a Chinese meal here yesterday. I thought I'd share it with all of you. And that's one formula, and it's going to be different for everybody, but definitely photos, videos, and just regular old text are going to outperform links right now, because everybody's just trying to drop links in LinkedIn, and it's just not going to be as effective. So that's my advice for all you. Create your own formula, do your own experimentation. Even if it's once a week and you can do a 1-minute video once a week, just like we're doing a video now, record a screen share, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be fancy. It has to be authentic and about you. And those are going to do better, right? It's a beautiful age we live in.
Absolutely right. Well, another trend, let's talk about this, because I know that your new book is all about the business of influence.
Yes.
So how is this concept of influencer marketing? What do we need to know as thought leaders, experts, speakers? Some of us might even be influencers ourselves. What opportunities does that open up for us to be influencers or to connect with influencers, given all the great ideas in that book of yours?
The book is still in production. For those of you curious, I have written 3 books. My first book was in 2009, before I wanted to become a speaker. In fact, it was the book that got me speaking opportunities. I'm like, well, can you buy like 50 copies of the book for in lieu of me speaking? And that's what started my whole speaking career, in all honesty. So the first book and the second book were actually self-published. And back in 2009, it was not easy to self-publish. 2013, I got to deal with Wiley, right? So I've seen like the major publisher as well as the self-publishing. So I knew that I needed a book. And I realized that speaking revenues, it's not necessarily stable, right? But I knew what I was missing was, if people want to reach out to you, professional associations, business, what are you going to talk about? And the book is like, this is what I'm going to talk about. And they'll ask, hey, what was the last book you wrote, right? So I came to the conclusion a few months ago that as a speaker, I need to have a book. And ideally, I want to have a new book once a year because the topics change. And I always want to be out there with fresh topics. Now, I speak the world of social and digital media, which changes a lot. People are always asking what's new, what's next, right? If you're in a different field, that might not be the same, right? But even a topic like millennials, if you're like in, HR or workplace culture, this is a topic that I'm sure a lot of companies want to hear you talk about, right? So it may make sense to write the book. Anyway, I came to the conclusion to write the book, and a platform reached out to me called Publishizer. Now, I'm not in any way related to this platform, but they are a crowdsourcing or crowdfunding platform. They basically say, you don't even have to write the book, test market the idea and get orders and see how many people would actually buy your book. And at the same time, expose it to potential publishers. And I did it, and it survived, right? It's like, this is the book that people want me to write about, so I'm going to do it. So even though you can buy my book, the pre-order, it has not been written yet in clear transparency. But I'm obviously planning on finishing the manuscript in the next 30 days is my plan. But getting back to the book, the number one question, I think as speakers, we create a lot of content and get a lot of inspiration by the questions we get from the audience. And I love getting as many questions as possible. It keeps me at the top of my game. It gives me hints as what content I need to create. And the question I used to always get asked is, Neal, how do I calculate the ROI of social media? How do I create a strategy? And I wrote a book, Maximize Your Social, all about that 4 years ago. Most recently, the number one question I get asked is either, tell me how to do influencer marketing. Tell me more about it. Or how do I become an influencer? I know someone who's a millionaire YouTuber. My friend has 100,000 Instagram followers and she's getting, $500 to post a photo. How do I get in on the game? So I realized that there was something, big going on there. But I also realized, and my background is B2B, and as speakers as well, influence is not a new topic. It's an old topic, right? Dale Carnegie, right? How to win friends and influence people. So the topic of influence is not new, but because we spend so much time on online and in social media, it becomes a very, very powerful way to get traction. So for instance, when I have clients, I say, look, you want to become an influencer in your industry, because if you become an influencer, everybody wants to work with you. Right. So one of my clients, the Dr. Oz show, reached out to us within 90 days. They wanted to work with us because we were perceived as being an influencer in that industry, even though we were brand new to the market, literally within 90 days. We were a Japanese company with no American staff. I was their staff virtually. But with influence comes all sorts of opportunities. People want to interview you. Newspapers want to reach out to you. All these brands want to work with you and all that. And if you're a business, you get partnerships, you get greater play in the ecosystem, what have you. So I think that everybody should be trying to get more influence online in what they do. And I think it's possible. And really the book that I'm writing is really talking about how this concept of influence has accelerated in the digital age, number one. It's not something new, but it takes on a new meaning, and it lets people that 12 months ago weren't even on Instagram have 100,000 followers and be considered an influencer just a year later, right? It's that type of a world we live in. Number two, that every business should try to become influential. Number three, this is how you go about trying to attract influencers or leveraging influencers. And number four, if you want to become an influencer, this is my advice for you. So I'm really trying to answer a lot of different questions in one book. And therefore, the business of influence seemed, it's about business now, and that seemed to be the best name. But, as an agency, what I realized was that you need to be able to have content to publish on a daily basis. And we're not all content creators on a daily basis, meaning that at some point you need to curate content from others, right? And I have always curated content from influencers, because if you're going to curate content from someone, why not try to get the eye of an influencer who may see that you're engaging with them? They may follow you. They may start to pay attention to your content. A few months from now, they may even share a piece of your content. And I've seen it happen over and over again. So I talked about this at Social Media Marketing World like 2 years ago. I called it, climbing up the influencer totem pole. But if you were to follow 100 influencers in your industry in social media, maybe only 5 follow back. But that's fine. Focus on the 5, right? And maybe from the 5, 2 of them start to share. Maybe, one of them, when you reach out to them, they're like, yeah, I don't mind if you interview me for your podcast, or whatever it is, right? But that's how you begin to get more and more influence. The other way to get influence just by building a bigger, more engaged community through engaging with them, through sharing great content, whether it's your own or curated content. So there is sort of a formula. It takes time. I think every speaker should be doing this within their own industry. And I do think that the more, influence they yield, the more opportunities in various ways. And I'm not saying just to get free swag from companies. Who cares about that? But true opportunities, collaborative opportunities, we participate in this event, what have you, do come your way over time.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So last quick question for you, because I know you're a super busy guy. Let's go behind the scenes here a little bit. Let's pull back the curtain into Neal Schaffer land, because you said, hey, I speak, I have this agency business, I do some influencer marketing. I know you have this fabulous community that you're putting together, the social media COE.com, Social Media
Yes.
Center of Excellence. So what's the Neal Schaffer empire, and what can we, as fellow speakers in all different kinds of topics, there's the Neal Show, you've got an organization, you're building a community, you do some consulting, you write some books. Walk us through kind of the business model and all the different ways that you help your clients.
So number one, this all happened organically. I never intended to become a speaker or an author or be involved in social media. It all happened when, I was a B2B sales, biz dev marketing executive. I speak Japanese and Chinese, so I helped foreign companies into Asian markets in technology fields. It all happened one day in 2008 when I actually got a job with the Ladders, believe it or not, which is like winning the California lottery. And then 3.5 months later, they decided to pull the plug on international sales for a variety of reasons. And it was actually the day that President Obama was elected president back in 2008. And that was when I realized I'm a very passionate individual, and I'm hoping my passion, that's usually what comes across in my speeches. I'm a very passionate individual for the organizations that I partner with. And that was just a complete shock to my system that after 3.5 months of this intense investment that they could just pull the plug. And I realized then that I needed to build something that no one can take away from me. And that was my brand, right? So I was still interviewing for positions, but this is the Lehman Brothers crisis, late 2008, early 2000. No one was hiring. Everyone was firing. So there were opportunities that came up. And my wife is like, Neal, you should consider writing a book if you don't get a job. And I'm like, I don't want to become an author. But I had begun to blog, and I blogged before I started working at that company in July of 2008 as a networking vehicle. I wanted to get to know more people, right? And I was already very active on LinkedIn. And I thought a blog is a great way to add value to the world and, pay it forward with the information I have. So that was 25% of my first book. And after I published my first book and I started getting speaking engagements, it was literally in 1 month, January 2010, when 4 different companies here locally in Orange County, California, reached out to me. They go, Neal, we don't know what we don't know. We know we need help with social media. How can you help us? At the same time, I was negotiating a final, interview with a company up in Silicon Valley. And this was the fork in the road, right? So I decided to go where I thought was the upside with social media. There was no business model. I was not an agency guy, right? I was not a speaker. I was not a consultant. But I realized that what companies needed then and they still need now is training. Well, they need education and they need strategy. So from that, everything I do ties into one of those two things. So, how do you build a revenue stream? So it obviously began with the speaking, and then it came to the consulting. And then I'm not an internet marketing guy at all. Affiliate marketing, I don't really do that. But there's one guy, I went to something called Author Marketing 101 conference, which maybe some of you have been to as well. And there was one guy that spoke that really resonated with me. His name is Brandon Burchard. And I consider him one of the brilliant minds out there. And so, I got invited to his Experts Academy, and he's like, if you have IP, there's like 12 different ways to monetize that. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot more ways I need to monetize this IP, right? So that's when I started going in, speaking. Then I would get training requests. I do social selling training. I train marketing teams on digital and social. So, training is not speaking, but it's sort of, there's that part. Universities, Rutgers reached out to me. I teach at the Irish Management Institute in Ireland. I teach in Finland at the University of Jyväskylä. So that became another sort of revenue stream for me, was the university, higher education revenue stream. And they do some of that online now. So I start to get the royalties. So slowly you got the book, you got the consulting, you got the training, you got the university. But there were still other things that I wasn't doing. So I never started an agency until one of my consulting clients said, Neal, we just want you to do this for us. So all this infrastructure I had for my own brand and for my own channels, I decided to use for clients. That began the agency revenue model, which was last year. And that can be as simple as writing content for your clients. I was doing social, but there's a lot of content agencies out there, and there's a lot of need for content if you're good at content creation. What are the other ones that came my way? Well, I had people requesting to guest blog on my site. So I decided to create a separate site for guest bloggers called Maximize Social Business. And that has steadily gotten more ad revenue, affiliate marketing revenue. And now it's actually a profit maker because it was never intended for profit. So that's sort of my media play, which also helps me yield influence. So the other thing that I never did that I always wanted to do, and I tried to create my own tool, which I had someone in the Ukraine create an alpha, someone in India create a beta. I never put it to market for various reasons. So I've done the tool thing, and I actually have an opportunity now to resell social media tools in Japan. That would be another sort of revenue stream.
What kind of tool was that, or what did it do?
So the tool was really an analytical tool for small businesses that instead of showing you all this data about your social media, would literally tell you what you need to do next. So it was a consulting built into the tool. And I still think it's needed for the market. And, I've shown a screenshot of it at a few times when I speak. I haven't shown it recently, but the reselling opportunity is really interesting because it's a company that already resells a certain type of social media tool, and they're looking for new tools to introduce to their clients. And they're like, Fortune 500 Japanese companies. So that might be really interesting. But the other one that I never had the opportunity to do, and I should mention, I also did an event called the Social Tool Summit, which I co-founded, did that for 2 years, 4 events. It wasn't as synergistic with everything else I do, and it wasn't as profitable as I would have liked to have been. So I've stopped doing events. But the other one is a mastermind community. So, I've built up this community. And over the years, I started with windmillnetworking.com. Then when I started the guest blogging, I branched that off into Maximize Social Business, and then my own brand, Maximize Your Social. I came to the conclusion this year that the best personal brand you can have is your name. So I rebranded my personal brand as nealschaffer.com. But one thing I've wanted to do for the last year is really to create a mastermind and really a community where all this content, and as a speaker, you have all this content that you have for corporations and professional associations that average people never get access to, right? And it's like I'm leaving money on the table. There's money to be made by giving small business owners, independent professionals access to this content in some sort of a monthly community or mastermind, whatever you want to call it. So that's what the Social Media Center of Excellence was. I started as a freemium, a Facebook group. We have 1,500 members. I've yet to launch the website, as you know, if you've seen it. But with the pre-launch of my book, I put together a package that says, if you buy 3 books, for $60, I'm going to give you the first month to this new mastermind for free. And the mastermind is really focused on how do I become an influencer? How do I yield more influence? So it's aligned with the book. So that's for me is sort of the final frontier of really monetizing the community in a new way, also adding value. And I know from doing that, I'm also going to get more content. So, there's a Yiddish word called mishugana, which means crazy, and balancing all the consulting and the speaking and the training, but it's all synergistic, right? It all feeds on each other because the consulting gives me opportunities to get data and experience and get new insight to share in the speaking, which leads to the book. So it's a crazy world. I don't like stability. I'm sort of, I've always been seen as eccentric. I've always been a busybody. So for me, this is very fulfilling. It's not fulfilling for everybody, right? But you need to embrace the mashigana, for lack of a better word, because, it does all add to each other. You do need to manage your time, and I manage my time. Some people call me a time Nazi. All people say, hey, can I have 2 minutes for a quote for a blog post? Sorry, I'm writing a book. And even, Daniel, you sent me a link to book time for this interview like a year ago. And I'm religious about my emails. I finally got to it right. I'm like, hey, is this link still active? Because now the timing's right. And that's the sort of, unsubscribe, report for spam, be really selective as to who I work with, and just try to get more and more efficient with every day and really focus on what matters, what's going to generate revenue, who are good people, good businesses to work with, and what have you. So that in a nutshell is Neal Schaffer. At the end of the day, I'm hustling like every other speaker should be. How do you monetize this amazing IP that we all have? It's a daily struggle. It's a daily challenge. We all need to be trying new things. Hopefully my experience that I've shared will maybe give you a new idea or two. I don't know. And there's still 1 or 2 of these 12 things that I still haven't done that Brandon Burchard would talk about. I haven't done like a personal retreat, like come with me to Hawaii for the weekend and learn social media. And I'm not there yet. I think for me, the other thing I want to do is I see Japan as this whole huge market. I speak fluent Japanese. I actually speak and do workshops in Japanese covering social media, digital media. So that's sort of this other business unit that I've been trying to generate more revenue from. And hopefully 2018 is going to be a big year for me in Japan. So I will stop there. Hopefully that answered all the sort of, I still get, Neal, I know you're active in social, but what the heck do you do for a living? It's a combination of things. And I'm sure a lot of speakers out there, hopefully you're nodding saying, yep, I'm doing the combination as well. But yeah, that's basically it.
I love it. So I think we have to end on two very quick notes. One, arigato. Two, embrace the mashugana.
Hey, I'm going to get that domain, so don't try to get it before I do.
No, it's all you, buddy. It's all you. All right. That was great. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I mean, man, fire hose right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you your 12 minutes back, so you still have time for your 35 minutes after the hour. This was awesome. Great to connect with you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.